On this episode of View the Right Thing, it's a psychological thriller directed by Christopher Nolan, centered on the intense rivalry between two magicians in 19th century London, Robert Angier and Alfred Borden. After a tragic accident during a performance, the two former friends become bitter enemies, each obsessed with outdoing the other and uncovering their secrets. As their rivalry escalates, both men resort to increasingly dangerous and elaborate tricks, pushing the boundaries of illusion and reality. Angier becomes fixated on discovering the secret behind Borden's astonishing signature act that leads to obsession, sacrifice, and deception, building to a shocking conclusion as the true cost of their rivalry is revealed. Wes, Alexis, and special guest Kyle Philippi expose the secrets behind the magic of The Prestige on View the Right Thing.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of View the Right Thing. I'm Wes.
I'm Alexis.
Hi, Alexis.
Hello.
We have a guest today.
We do.
I'm really excited.
I know.
Today we have Kyle Philippi. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, I'm Kyle Philippi, and I'm here.
You are here. So Kyle is a content creator that I came across and instantly fell in love with his videos. So I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about that. I think there's two main videos that I really like, drew me in. I don't know if there's like a ton more you do on there, but one is you do the DoorDash musicals. Where did that come from? Like, how did you decide to do that?
I'm surrounded by a bunch of musically talented people and people that can just act, and we're always being stupid and silly, and somehow I honestly don't know how the idea came about. My friend said, I had a series where I was scaring my friend because she's afraid of Jafar. I don't know if you saw those. I found out that she has a fear of Jafar. And so I started dressing up as Jafar and scaring her. And my friend said, I think your niche is really just committing to something way too big. And you should lean into that. And I don't know, the idea was we should start putting on full productions for our DoorDash drivers when they show up at the front door. And so
do you just do one and then that's it for the night? You just do one performance, or do you like?
We start setting up at we set up at like 5:00, and then everybody shows up at like 6:30, and then we do like makeup and blocking, and the band learns the music, and then the singer learns it, and then we do a couple video takes in case we don't get everything. And then we call the DoorDash driver, and I message them in the app saying, can we sing to you for TikTok? That's all we say. And if they say no, we just say, okay, we'll just drop the burger at the front door, and we order another one. And then sometimes we do it, and they just stare at us, and they give which happened last night.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate.
The person was on their phone and never put their phone down from their ear. Never just like. And then we tipped them, and they left, and we're like, we got to do it again. So perfect world, we do it once, but we were doing it till about 11:30 last night.
Do you have a favorite that you've done so far?
Be Our Guest was always going to be like, this is going to be a huge one. And I always wanted to have fireworks for it. My HOA doesn't allow fireworks. So we always said, if we're going to do it, we got to do it 4th of July weekend. Because everybody lights off fireworks and nobody cares. So we had drones and fireworks and big props, and that one was probably the most fun.
Yeah. Are there, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but do you have any, can you hint at any future productions? Or
one that I really want to do is Zero to Hero from Hercules. But I'm like 2 singers short. When I say I'm short, like I'm going to get the most amazing gospel singers, and I've got like 3 lined up. I need 5, and I have an amazing band. Like we'll take them to church. It will be insane, but I need like 2 more powerhouse singers, and we're going to pull it off. but I don't know when.
Right. That's all right. I will keep an eye out.
But we did
the
Wicked
other
last night.
the other
We did
series.
Wicked last night.
Yeah, Wicked. So this will come out well after both the movie and your is the Wicked's not, is the TikTok out for it, or just you just did
posted it
the
right
the
before
live for it last week?
right before we went on. Yeah, literally, it was uploading while I was signing on.
That's why I haven't seen it. So the other video series you do that I really, really love, and I commented once that it's like watching a cult form in real time. You do these, like, I don't know if you want to call them like TED Talks, or you do these PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that start? Because it kind of blew me away the first time I saw it.
That started because my wife's a big Swiftie, and I did a PowerPoint presentation on whether she could make it to the Super Bowl in time from her being in Japan. And then I just had more to say. And I was like, you know what? I think the first one we did was it Peter Pan? Peter Pan's a villain? Something like that. I was like, let me just have a hot take on this. And our friends, they will just, as soon as you get in an argument, they'll commit to it, whether it's nonsense or serious. And people, I guess, resonated and had strong Disney facts. And so we do those from time to time where I have a hot take on, is Ursula really a villain, or is she just a strong businesswoman? Those kind of things.
Yeah, I liked Genie owing Aladdin another wish. I really liked that a lot.
Yeah.
And you have inspired a common thing said in our household. And it's silly and it doesn't make sense contextually to anyone else, but we know what it is, and it's justice for Valerie Di Naranjo.
Oh, that was the next one. You're right. That was the one after Taylor.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah, because the Taylor Swift one is, I was like, follow. But yeah, the SNL stuff just really really grabbed us. It really tickled us, and when I told my wife that you were going to do, I said, oh, I got a new guest for the podcast. Guess who it is? And she's like, oh, I don't know. You know, she threw out some guesses, and I said, justice for Valerie Di Naranjo. And she went, I'm so excited for you. So
that was so bizarre because the cast members started like responding, but they still wouldn't give answers. Responded. It was like just really a weird thing. We still don't know.
Yeah, you even did like some follow-ups on it too, like with the finale and stuff.
Yeah, a bunch of follow-ups, and like they were like, "Hey, like we just can't answer this. Please respect our privacy." And I was like, "I don't want to make you mad. I'm a huge SNL fan. I just don't know what's happening. Don't know what's happening." So
it
go
must
watch
be some
that series.
Really personal thing or something.
Watch that series.
Yeah, that's a good one. Can you tease anything? Do you have anything planned for that coming up?
No, I get lots of DMs every Saturday. People letting me know her status, where she is.
I meant any new PowerPoint presentations that we can afford in general.
I had one because sometimes people will send me ideas and stuff too. We did Frozen recently, and no, I can't think of it. If anybody has any hot takes on Disney, send them to me because I don't have any off the top of my head. But we need to do another one soon.
I'd like to see one on Disney's Robin Hood.
Oh,
is it too
just because you like it
for children? Yeah, no, it's like my favorite. But a lot of people will say that movie is sort of like their cartoon sexual awakening.
I kind of had a crush on. The foxes
are just like too sexy.
I had a crush on.
They're very sexy.
Maid Marian.
Right?
What's her name?
Maid Marian, yeah.
Maid Marian. That's weird.
Yeah.
My wife's name is Marian, so I just realized maybe it was for me. I kept going. Am I saying my wife's name? Is that her name? Maid Marian.
He's like, hey, I know what we're going to be for Halloween next year.
Yeah. Give me a little Robin Hood hat.
There you go. Cool. Well, is there any anything else people should be looking for you? Like you're on TikTok. Or do you want people to find you anywhere else?
Yeah, I opened an Instagram account up just a few months ago. So if you're not following me over there, give it a follow too. That's it. Just those two channels.
And it's just your name, right?
Yeah, if you search my name, I think the actual like handle is the.family.Philippi. But if you type Kyle Philippi, you'll find it. Thanks.
Nice.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Well, should we talk about The Prestige?
Let's do it.
So we ended up doing this movie because this is one Kyle loves. And I wanted to do something that maybe was sort of in his wheelhouse. And so, and you hadn't seen it since it came out, so you didn't remember anything about it.
Not a thing.
So that's how we ended up here. It's Christopher Nolan. Do you want to do your little, she does like an IMDb description.
Wow. The IMDb description is one sentence.
Cool.
So, rival 19th century magicians engage in a bitter battle for trade secrets. Done.
I guess that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's accurate.
So it was nominated. Yeah, without giving it all away. So it was nominated for 2 Oscars: cinematography, art direction. Cinematography is pretty interesting because they shot like 90% of this movie handheld. So that's kind of cool. He uses his guy Wally Pfister. It's Nolan's guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have some notes? Do you take?
I do have some
Do you
notes.
have a decent amount of notes?
I have.
It's always interesting to find out whether she has
many notes.
Sometimes she has a lot. She has a lot of notes. Sometimes she has a lot of notes, and sometimes she's just so engrossed and like forgets to take.
I forget.
them.
Yeah.
So, that's all right. Actually, real quick, Kyle, what is it about this movie that draws you to it? Like, why do you love this film?
I mean, Christopher Nolan's an incredible director, but this is a movie that I watched it and I was like, that was good. And then it's one of those, you don't know everything that you're watching. And then when you watch it, you're like, oh, wow, you have a new lens. And every time I watch it, I catch more stuff. And it's written so much better than you realize once you have the prestige, the final act of it. And so that's why I just love it. It's so layered. And every time you watch, it's just a fine wine. Every time you watch it, you're like, oh, wow, this was happening. This was going on. Oh, that line actually had double meaning.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like on a rewatch is figuring out which twin is on screen at any given time. So I find that a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about your notes, Alexis? Let's get going. Let's get cracking.
Right. Well, it just starts off with Michael Caine.
Yeah, Michael Caine. That's
very excited to see Michael Caine because I
Nolan's
didn't
guy.
remember that he was in this. All I could really remember was that it was Hugh.
Not Hugh Grant. Hugh Jackman.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. Beyond that, I had no recollection.
Well, and right at the beginning, too, one of the things I really love about the film is the first 2 shots of the film tell you the sort of what the film is and sort of the secret immediately, right?
Yes.
So we start with the cloned hats and then immediately followed by the 2 birds. So it's clones versus twins, essentially. They do a lot. They do a lot of that in the film, but I like that they show those 2 things, and then you hear Christian Bale say tells you to watch closely, like they're telling you like you got to pay attention here. So,
now I want to watch this again.
See,
Sure.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah,
It's
a good pick.
Did like the jumping back and forth between different times was so beautifully done. And I feel like, that is very similar to Oppenheimer. The jumping back and forth in time, and you're like trying to
a fairly good amount of movies. Like, he doesn't do linear storytelling.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at like I can't remember how linear following is, but Memento, obviously, Inception, Tenet. It's a sort of a director trait of his. And actually there is kind of a funny Inception style thing in this. Obviously this is before Inception, but where it's a guy reading a guy in a book, reading a guy in a book. You know, it's like a layer and a layer and a layer. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a movie based on a book. So I'll just throw that in.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I forgot about that. This is one of my boyfriend's favorite movies, and last night I go, "Have you seen The Prestige?" He goes, "Have I? It's my favorite. I own the book. I own this thing and then this thing." And he was so excited. I was like, I don't remember any of it. Life has happened in the last almost 20 years.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
At the beginning, I'm just so impressed by sleight of hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the little things that you can't see when they're like, "Oh, I have this thing," but then it's gone.
Yeah.
I'm forever impressed by sleight of hand.
And Christian Bale learned no magic. You know, a lot of actors will learn.
Yeah.
He learned no magic of this. So
Not at all. No sleight of hand whatsoever.
no.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was all just probably like
movie magic. I think Hugh Jackman learned some stuff, and I think so. There is. I'll address it again and probably in your notes, but there is a really famous magician in the movie. So we'll get there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably recognize him more as an actor.
Okay. Cool.
We'll get there.
I'm excited. I just have to say the introduction to Colorado Springs and not just the train going past him and then the smoke reveals him and it's like and the light turns on and I see him turn, and at first I thought he was taken by the beautiful mountain range, but it's the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just something that's so just ingrained into our lives. Like, oh, it's electricity. Cool.
Yeah.
But his reaction to it was so beautifully genuine. He's just a fantastic actor.
Sure.
And also, I guess I've forgotten when light bulbs became a thing in a household.
Yeah.
Because this was like when Tesla finally agreed to see him was in 1899.
Yeah.
And so there was electricity in 1899. And that's not something that my brain can compute.
Yeah.
I always thought like, oh, weren't people still living by candlelight? Which they were.
A lot of people,
it wasn't
people
like
were.
Yeah, those that were not accessible to it.
Right. So it was just surprising. Also, was not expecting to see Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Right.
So when he came out, you thought he was going to be Tesla, right?
I did. I totally did. But he didn't have an accent. He had like a New York accent, which wouldn't have made sense for Tesla.
Well, did you catch the? There's something that happens with Andy Serkis in The Hobbit. They do in this, right? So in The Hobbit, Bilbo does this like, what's in my pocket? What's in my? And Gollum has to guess.
I never
interesting.
even
And so-
put that. I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan. I never even threw that connection.
I mean, obviously, this was like
This was
before The Hobbit, so I mean, but it's just funny that those two things happen in both movies. So,
Oh,
yeah,
isn't that something?
yeah, little fun thing there.
I was also delighted to see Piper Perabo. You like reacted. I was like, "Is that Piper Perabo?" You're like, "I don't know."
I don't know. It was like the Coyote Ugly girl.
Yes,
Okay.
she's been
Never
in
seen it.
things.
I mean, I haven't seen even that, so I don't know.
It's not fantastic.
What other things is she in?
Imagine Me and You. She's on a TV show that I can't recall.
Cool. So really memorable.
I remembered her full name. I couldn't remember Hugh's last name.
It's true. Old Hugh, what's his face? Small actor, that guy.
The time and care that was taken to have the specific time appropriate costuming is so refreshing. I'm also Kyle, I'm also a seamstress and a costumer, and I get really upset when something is set in a particular time period and they don't go with the full time period. Like in the there was one.
The zippers.
The zippers didn't exist then.
Does it bother you when like there's like a movie where they travel a lot, or it's like a well lived in world, and then the clothing is not like tattered and like muddy, like it just looks too pristine.
Right.
Yeah.
Like all of the clothing and the sets, the what is it? Not the set designer, but the art
direction.
Art
Which is
direction.
nominated for an Academy Award.
And well, it should have been.
And I think that's a good point too, that like that's one of the things that will take me out of a movie. So for you it's the clothing, but for me it's like if a set is supposed to be dirty and it's really clean and there's no debris, that will really, really bother me and take me out. So
Yes.
So I get it.
Like even the home of Rebecca.
Oh, with the peeling paint on the door, the cracked paint on the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
It not only shows how poor she really was, but like people really lived that way.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's sort of shows throughout the film her desires versus his desires.
Yeah.
You know, like he eventually gives her the house that she wants. And like gives it a place to go, but also sort of like he's so focused on one thing and she's so focused on like building a family and a life.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it's
And oh my gosh, I was totally tricked when she's like, I can't let you in. My landlord would, be completely just horrified. And then he ends up in the room. And I was like, wait a minute.
you're like, how did he get there?
How did that happen? And at that moment I was like, actually, let me check my notes. I don't think I was tricked yet. It was later on. Yeah, it was later on. But finally I was like, Fallon, isn't it Bale? I was like, is he a twin? Oh my God. But like, this was all just like watching it fresh for me because I couldn't recall anything that happened.
Which they do, again, as another moment in the film where they tell you the secret. They tell you the prestige, right? They her nephew is like, where's his brother?
Yes.
What about his brother? And that look on Christian Bale's face is like, oh,
He
he's
says
figured it
you're
out.
very smart. He says something like that.
Yeah. Did we pass the part where they go to look at the? Do you have notes about that? Where they go to look at the guy with the fishbowl?
No. His wife hasn't died yet in my notes.
Did she die? Did she die after that?
Yeah.
Or before that?
She died after that.
After that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is great for the podcast. Let me just talk about that, and maybe I don't know if you guys have notes about that. So they go see Michael Caine's like, go and see how this guy does this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he waves the little cloth over the table, and a goldfish bowl full of water, and a goldfish appears. And there's this whole thing about the trick is that he's pretending to be this ailing man, and that he's just so committed to it. And that's actually a real guy. I don't know if you guys know that.
No.
It was Chung-Ling Soo was his stage name, but he was a white guy named William Ellsworth Robinson who completely disguised himself as a Chinese man and lived as a Chinese man for like years. And he never broke character except for one time on stage when he went to do, and this is sort of kind of referenced in the movie, he went to do a bullet catch. It was unsuccessful. He was shot and killed, and as he was dying on stage was the first time he'd broken character on stage. And he was like, I've been shot.
Oh my God.
That was the first time he had spoken English in front of people in years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm so sorry. That was based on a real thing.
That's based on a real guy.
My God.
In which that again is more foreshadowing. Because he talks about the dedication and devotion it takes to live your life one way of being a lie.
Yeah, exactly. And so while they're doing this, they're working for another magician, right? Who you see kind of briefly on stage. Shorter, heavyset, beard. That's Ricky Jay, who like got really famous in like the 60s and 70s. And he's a magician. He's like basically credited as being the first magician to like open for rock bands, open in comedy clubs. Like he was a really big deal. And he did not do stage magic. He did sleight of hand, close up stuff. So different than what he's doing in this, portrayed as in this movie. But he was like a friend of David Mamet, and they did movies. He did movies with him, and that's kind of, I think, how he got into acting. But there's this story where he's doing a trick for David Mamet and someone else, and how it's recounted is that he's doing this trick, and he's like, he says, think about a card, just concentrate on a card, and he shuffles the cards, puts them face down, cuts it into two piles, and he tells one of the guys, he says, name your card, and the guy goes 3 of clubs, and he tells him turn over the top card, and he turns over the top card, and it's the 3 of clubs. And the other guy who's there, I think that might have been David Mamet, is going, well, I have a card too. I have a card in mine too. And he's like, yeah, this is a trick for one person. Just, don't worry about it. And he's like, no, but I have a card too. He's like, okay, so what's your card? And he goes, the 2 of spades. And he goes, turn over the top card. And he goes to the other half of the deck, flips it over, and it's the 2 of spades.
Oh, wow.
And apparently the place like went nuts.
Yeah, understandably.
So he also was in the Guinness Book of World Records. He threw a playing card 190 feet, 90 miles an hour. Yeah.
How?
He used to throw them into watermelons.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a small item, I guess. Like, how did they capture that?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
That's wild.
I mean, high-speed cameras, I guess.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. Jumping back just a little bit, watching the trauma of losing his wife, of what is his actual character's name instead of calling him by his actor's name?
Robert?
Robert, yes. Robert, watching him like deal with the trauma of losing his wife and trying to recreate the feeling of drowning himself to see what she endured. And now thinking of the end of the film, you almost wonder, like, oh, well, since my wife died that way, and since Michael Caine's character said that it was just like coming home, I could do this over and over again.
Yeah.
But
well, then he gives him that realization at the end that it wasn't like coming home. Right? Yeah.
So he was just torturing himself.
Kyle, since this is a movie that you love, and you mentioned his name, Alfred Borden and Robert Angier. Do you know the little fun fact about their initials, Kyle?
No.
So it's Alfred Borden, Robert Angier. Their initials spell out Abra.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. There's some more fun. Like fun thing. There's some other stuff.
That's probably
names that's
thing from the novel.
Yeah. So in the novel, the 2 brothers are named Albert and Frederick, which is how the amalgamation of the 2 of them gets the name Alfred.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's kind of hinted at here because she calls him Freddie, which is not really.
Yeah.
I guess you could call an Alfred Freddie, but it makes sense
weird.
for Frederick.
Yeah. Wow. And on IMDb, it only lists Christian Bale as playing Alfred Borden.
Yeah. All right.
And not.
Well, they don't give it away.
Right? I guess. It's been out for 18 years.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, what else do I have here?
I threw you off. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I do have to say, at the funeral of his wife, that is the most beautiful casket I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And an open casket. She just looks. Okay, that would be the one thing that didn't seem realistic to me because she looked so fantastic. Oh. And if you've drowned, granted they got her out right away, I'm torn on that, but she looked really fantastic for.
Well, they're show people, right? They got to put on a show even in death.
Yeah, they did get her out right out away, but she had water in her lungs and
CPR isn't invented for another 60 years or something. So
oh,
not till the 50s.
That's why they didn't do anything. I was watching that, wondering why aren't you doing anything? You're just staring at her.
I think 50s or 60s. And I think is when CPR was.
The Heimlich maneuver.
The Heimlich. I don't know
guess
what
that
was.
was.
That's for choking.
CPR is different. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's I guess similar. You're pushing on them.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't. If you're trying to give somebody CPR, kids, don't do the Heimlich maneuver.
Don't do that.
They're not the same. It's just for clarification. Podcast gets
Anyone
sued.
who may be confused, like myself. Okay. So I wrote it. The bullet scene. That is when I believed he was a twin.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I don't know why.
How did you account for the hand later?
Well, they were always wearing gloves.
Sure.
So I couldn't, trust me, I was watching his left hand all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Left hand, right?
Mm-hmm. His left hand. Correct.
And, it would always be in his pocket if it wasn't gloved, or there was always some way to hide it. And I thought, well, maybe when Fallon was playing the role of the magician, I don't know. Maybe he was just doing something like this. Maybe he had hiding his fingers down, something. I didn't know. But something about that scene just made me think, okay, he's definitely a twin. This has to be what it is. Because also the face, I could tell.
The prosthetic.
Yeah.
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 I thought they did a pretty good job of putting him enough that you knew the character, you knew who this character was, but they didn't put him on screen enough that you're really looking at him that much. I feel like they nailed how much we saw him.
Yeah, I agree.
And especially with Sarah, his wife, asking, "Do you love me?" And he said yes, and she goes, "No, you're lying today." And I was like, oh man, maybe the other brother is the one who really loves her.
Yeah.
And just her.
In fairness, you technically had seen this movie before.
I know, but it's as if I hadn't.
Yeah. I'm just saying, subconsciously today, you might have been picking up on.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I think with the first time
the
I watched
depths
this,
of my brain were.
I think the first time I watched this, I think I was genuinely surprised by it.
Yeah.
I think, because, we're so ingrained in storytelling for what we do. I tend to guess everything and never really know. Right. So I may have guessed it at one point, but never been convinced of it because other ideas were also possible. Mm-hmm. So it could be anything.
Were you surprised by the cloning?
I was definitely surprised by the cloning. I didn't think the cloning was, I didn't think there was going to be quote unquote real. I mean, it was science, but real magic in the movie at all. So yeah, definitely caught me off guard. How about you? Did this movie surprise you the first time you watched it, or?
Yeah, I think I was surprised by both. I just kind of went into it not suspecting. I guess I guess I just didn't realize that I was getting all these clues for stuff. So I was just watching it just as a film, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, I've just been an idiot this whole time. And then I watch it now looking for things, but I'm not suspecting or suspicious.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is one of Nolan's lowest rated films as far as reviews go.
Really?
It was the lowest until Interstellar came out, and I think Interstellar is fantastic too. And
I think
that's
Interstellar has done better in time.
Yeah,
I think it's looked at more fondly than when it came out.
Yeah. Well, as
knowing
we know,
now,
people find things over time.
if I watched this movie out of order and hadn't watched it, I'm like, oh, there's a Christopher Nolan movie I haven't watched yet. I absolutely would have been looking at everything under a microscope,
Right.
knowing the director and how he does. Even the Batman movies, he does stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, when you watch something that like has a particular theme throughout all the different, like with Nolan and his direction, you know that there's going to be a particular setup of how it goes. Like when I would watch, what is it, Game of Thrones with Jeff, I was like, none of these people matter. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, they're all going to die. Like, I can't.
Yeah, it makes it hard to
care.
Yeah, to love the characters because their numbers up at some point.
Right.
Yeah. What else you got?
What else do I have? I wrote this down. I don't recall who said it. It might have been Michael Caine. People hoping to see an accident are likely to see one. And I thought, wow, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. It's like, think about when you're driving on the highway and there's an accident. Everybody just like slows down to look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really like that they mentioned and went into a little bit more depth, but not too far, that they mentioned the Edison smear campaign against Tesla.
Well, and did you see the guy? So when they go to the little exposition to see the thing, and the crowd freaks out, and there's a guy in the crowd who's like, "This is dangerous," blah 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 blah, and starts screaming. Right later in the movie, when Tesla's place has been burned down, he sees the men in the car, and he's the guy. He's one of Edison's guys he's in both places.
I was taking a note at that point when he stood up in the audience.
I know. I saw you went to grab a blanket.
Oh.
But I was like, but then he said something again, so I was like, okay, she's seen him.
Yeah.
So I didn't like back it up.
That's fine.
Make sure
I didn't like
Process
pay
it.
attention to his face. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because it's like, the throwaway.
Yeah, you're just a
Yeah,
random
you
dude
think
in the
there's just
audience.
an extra, and not an extra, but a small
Alexis.
role.
What?
Actress friend.
Yeah.
There are no small parts.
I know. Only small roles.
But even adding in that rivalry, it's just like this film is just layered and layered on the same theming and concepts, within even different characters.
Yeah, and to go on the rivalry thing between Edison and Tesla, Tesla's like sort of obsession was his undoing. And yeah, so it's a good point you're making, that there's a connection to that rivalry.
I mean, and then they're both of their obsessions were their undoings.
Well, yeah. I know we haven't gotten to the Hugh Jackman double.
Right.
But that guy, when he's on the stage, talks about how he played Caesar and Faust, right? And both those characters are people who are really, really ambitious, and their ambition is what is the source of their undoing, right?
Right.
So
That's
and
not.
he's the double for.
That's not him, is it? I every time I watch it, I still don't know. Is that actually Hugh Jackman?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, they put
He
fake
looks
earlobes on
thinner.
him and fake
Maybe his
teeth and
nose
fake
looks a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it
I
is him.
probably put
But it is
a
him.
prosthetic. It's
Yeah.
totally him.
yeah.
Yeah.
The earlobe part is the part that, like, the nose is obviously like, yeah, but some people have like the earlobes that actually like kind of cut under, and some people just have them that just connect. Hugh Jackman's in real life just connect, and they added on to that character little earlobes to like help throw you off, which I think is a nice little touch.
I'm gonna stare at everyone's earlobes now.
Yeah, do you want to see it?
What are you? Oh, yours kind of swoops.
Sure.
Yours swoops.
Yeah, yours swoops. Well, now we got to look at Alexis's ears.
Mine has a little swoop.
Yeah. So for anybody that's trying to double us,
You
Yeah,
can't.
good luck. By the
you
way,
just
have
got to
you,
sew the lobes.
have you seen the movie that's based off of the rivalry of Edison and Tesla? I watched it on a plane a few months ago, but it came out years ago.
Doesn't have Adrian Brody in it, does it? I can't remember who's in it. I remember it was on my list of things to like check out, and I just
It was
fell
pretty
off.
good. It's called The
I would
Current
be fascinated to
War.
watch it.
And it came out in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it has
vaguely remember when it was
it has
coming out.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Other lanky.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't remember who else, but it was pretty good. I watched it on the airplane. And I was like, oh,
Gonna add that into the bottom of my notes so I can check it out.
Yeah.
I ended up not really liking Tesla. In school, you're like raised to be like, he's the man who gave us this, and I ended up being like, it's kind of snaky.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he did he kill like an elephant in front of people too? Like it was like in an experiment.
No, I think they were horses.
Horses. Oh wow.
Oh.
Yeah,
Still.
he ends up trying to not get them to use the direct current, right? I can't remember the different current, and showing how dangerous it is, and he kills something. I think
Wow.
a horse.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Tesla, the technology obviously just wasn't where it needed to be to do what he wanted to do, but we use sort of the foundations of that in our everyday life, right? Like Wi-Fi and
Yep.
even cell phones. So wireless charging. I mean, Tesla would have been like, I did it.
The light bulb in the ground.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a horse.
Excuse me.
I was afraid of being
It
a
was
horse.
a horse.
Yeah.
Freaking
Horse.
Tesla.
I'm kind of upset
Mm.
to know that magicians just killed a shit ton of birds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
This
definitely didn't remember that.
cost
I
of
remembered,
business.
I did remember one of the birds, but like, I didn't realize. I thought that they were actually like hiding them into a little secret compartment.
Yeah.
Same thing. And
Makes
then
me
they
think of
killed
Arrested
the
Development.
same amount of Hugh Jackmans.
All right. Yep. Yeah.
Arrested
Balance.
Development, yeah.
Well,
Arrested
and-
Development, yeah.
Yeah, there's a dove in the freezer. The trick with the bird cage where people would put their hands on it is a real trick. That Harry Blackstone, another famous magician from like the 70s, 80s, also did. And then his son also continued that, Harry Blackstone Jr.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's neat.
Yeah. Real trick. So not all the birds died.
Not all the birds.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Just the responsible magicians would not kill their birds.
Well, this was
Magic
like
responsibly.
almost 100
Magic
years later.
responsibly.
Oh, okay. So like millions of canaries, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that lots of birds died in the process of trying to refine magic tricks. Yeah, a lot of animals, probably all sorts of stuff. All right, let's move on from that.
I was incredibly excited to see David Bowie as Tesla.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to do this.
Why?
I don't know. I think you okay?
Yes.
Yeah, he was like, no, I don't want to do it. So Christopher Nolan flew out to go see him and was like, you're the only person that can do it the way I want it done. So, and they worked in his eye, was it
Heterochromia iridium.
Yeah, so they worked that into the dialogue because they were like,
They did?
yeah, he mentions it. He mentions something about his eyes in the movie.
I did not pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But Tesla himself didn't have heterochromia iridium.
No, but that's the point is that I was making was that because they were able to get Bowie, they make him comfortable, don't change things, so we'll change the script to
Interesting.
sort of fit the person. So
Okay.
which I thought was kind of cool, and
That is neat.
yay, Bowie.
When he's asking, when Tesla is asking that other gentleman, Hugh Jackman,
Robert,
Robert, that's my dad's name. I should not have a problem remembering that.
telling your dad.
So when Tesla tells Robert, or asks, I guess, can you recognize the cost? When he finally shows him this incredible machine, can you recognize the cost? And he goes, oh, price isn't the issue. He's like, yes, but can you recognize the cost?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's more to fear with this than price alone. Mm-hmm. And Robert is just like money driven. He's like, whatever, I have money, I'm just gonna throw it at whatever I need. But like, there's a deeper level to it that he just wasn't willing to comprehend.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of a Ahab, Moby Dick vibe, right? Like, at what cost do you have to achieve this thing?
Yeah. And I say it again. I'm like, he seems to only be interested in being the best and will throw money at whatever he wants.
Yeah. When you're watching this, when you watch it the first time, do you see, and I guess even now, do you see a villain in this film?
Who are you asking?
Literally just thinking about that. I look at Robert as the villain, but they're both pretty bad.
I think like the at least on the initial view, I saw Robert as the hero, right? Like you're kind of hearing this from Robert's perspective. And they do so much to like, you know, I think there's some sort of like classism bias in how you see Alfred throughout the film, because you see him as like poor and like wanting to do dangerous things, and then of course he's in prison, and so I think there's like intentional like classist bias in there where they're sort of subtly trying to make you feel like maybe he's the bad guy, and then it turns out at the end, once you learn the truth, once you have the prestige, right? Because like a lot of stories, this is 3 acts, just like he talks about in the film. Like you have the what do you call it, the pledge, which is like the first act of this film, and then the turn, which is the second act, and the third act is the prestige, right? So you know, once you have that and you understand everything that's going on, then it's sort of like, I feel like it changes my perspective, at least, of how I feel about the characters in that moment. And then I'm like, oh, really, Alfred might be the good guy all along. I mean, obviously they both do bad things to like one up each other, but like he doesn't actually want to kill him, right? Like he tries to save his life.
That's funny because I always watched it thinking Alfred's the good guy. He's the underdog. He's wrongfully put in prison. He doesn't have money. You know, he's rising to the top. And then I watched it and I'm like, the guy's like really lying to his wife, who ends up killing herself for a magic trick. And after I watched it, I was kind of like, I guess I'm rooting for you, but I don't think you were the hero anymore.
Well, it's interesting.
It's a sad story either way.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess I didn't really like process part of that, and I think it's because, yes, he's lying to his wife, right? Obviously, I think they both do bad things. I think they're both wrong in a lot of places, but like it's certainly not intentional to drive his wife to her death, and it's technically the brother that does it, which is, you know, doesn't make it like a lot better. But Alfred or I guess it would have been Albert in the book. He loves her. Like there's no question that he loves her, and you know they talk about how the other brother loved Scarlett Johansson's character. I forgot her name. So yeah, I'm not sure. It's weird how I don't know. Love drove them to do really crazy things in this film.
Yeah. I think Cutter was the best person.
That Michael Caine. Yeah.
He's definitely the moral compass.
Because I do think that he wanted the best for them.
What was that, Kyle?
I said he's definitely the moral compass of the movie.
Yeah, he's maybe us, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like observing.
Yeah.
And I think what's like one of the things that's likable about him is that he's actually the smartest guy in the room, even though he lets them think they're the smartest guys in the room. Maybe that's what makes him so smart.
Yeah, he knew there was a double, like right away.
Yep.
And he does what's right for that kid at the end, which is really, really nice and sweet.
Yeah.
Do you have the notes?
I do. Of course I do.
I knew you do. I knew you did.
Oh God, the emotion that I almost
Jackman?
said yes, but I almost said Hugh Grant. The emotion that Hugh Jackman shows when he's reading the translated Notebook, like when he gets to the end of the Notebook, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like he realizes that he's been had.
Yeah.
And he traveled across the world for a ruse.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, granted, he did end up getting something that he wanted and desired, but like it was all because of this notebook, and he was just messing with him the whole time.
Well, and you know, because we see that happen for Alfred as well in the prison.
Yeah.
We I think it reinforces this idea that that one of them is the better magician and one's the better showman. And so like in that moment, I think that's one of those examples that Hugh Jackman's character is seeing that Alfred's the better magician. But then he like shows him up at the end, right? Like it's such a bigger, grander thing to be reading that from your prison cell, you know? So,
yeah. Cause then like shortly thereafter, I was like, they both fucked with each other.
Yeah.
Via their journals.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You can't just send a spam email back in that era. You gotta write a whole journal.
That really was the long game.
Yeah.
I did find it amazing that Sarah, being married to technically both of these men, Rebecca.
Sorry, I just had to realize it. Go ahead.
Oh, good. She was with them, and she still didn't know the difference between them. Which I've dated an identical twin, and there are like little differences. However,
but would you have known if they were swapping back and forth and you didn't know that there was another one? Would you have looked past those details?
And she did know. She did pick up on the difference. She knew when one believed that he loved her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
she didn't suspect that it was a twin. I mean,
sure. Why
if she knew he had a twin, then she would go, "Oh, you're the brother," right?
Yeah.
I think kind of what Kyle's saying.
You're not consistent.
Yeah. I did have a realization. I think maybe an aha moment here when you were talking about the journal, and I was thinking about the differences between how they read the reveal, and I think they were explaining something about their characters in those moments. Hugh Jackman's character doesn't care about how he gets there. He just needs the answer, right? He'll throw money at it, right? Mm-hmm. So when he starts to realize something's up, he just flips to the end. He doesn't go on the journey. And Christian Bale's character is like shown throughout the film actually being the one to work on all the tricks. He's building all the tricks. He's constantly in his workshop. He's constantly planning. Yeah. Right? So he makes it to the end of the journal. He actually reads the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
I didn't until just now that we were talking about.
That's beautiful.
Yay.
Yay. I wrote after Christian Bale is in the cell and reads the end of his journal. Mm-hmm. Then I was like, Lord Codlow, he must be Danton. What is it? The Magnificent Danton?
Yeah, the Magnificent Danton.
That's when I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, he's not actually dead. And then I thought, how is he not actually dead? Because I didn't think that a human could be cloned. I was like, well, a cat, sure, and a hat, but a man?
A cat in a hat?
Uh-huh. And I was sad when she killed herself, and surely she thought she was losing her mind. Mm-hmm. Because your husband loves you one moment, and the next he doesn't, and his moods keep changing, and she just probably thought that she was the crazy one. which is sad.
I don't
No?
know if she was losing her mind. I think she was just, pardon the pun, at the end of her rope. I think she just was like so, like, not driven to madness, like what we would call crazy, right? I don't think she's insane. I think she genuinely knows the truth, and Alfred tells his brother that, like, she knows that something's up. She hasn't quite worked it out, but I think she does. And there's actually a moment where she says, "I know what you are." And that's an improvised line by Rebecca Hall. And she actually thought I spoiled the movie because they did, and they ended up keeping it in because it worked.
Yeah.
And it's like ambiguous enough that the audience doesn't necessarily know.
Yeah.
But I think like the fact that she, as an actress, thought she spoiled the movie tells us that the character knows.
What was she trying to portray the character pieces putting together? Like, what was she trying to say that the character knew?
I think she was saying that I know that you're like, that you have a double, that you're a twin, that you're living two lives. I think so, because I don't think she would have felt like she'd spoiled it.
I always read that line as, I know what you really are. Like, I know that you're not this great, amazing magician as the world sees. Like, you're just a piece of crap who loves me one day and doesn't love me the next day.
You're a monster that like only cares about the performance
yourself.
Yeah. I think that's what the audience is supposed to think. I'm just saying, like,
she was worried that maybe I showed my hand too much.
Yeah, knowing how actors, I mean, you can speak maybe on this a little bit, Alexis, but sort of knowing how actors are like with their characters and how everything means something, and they go into like the backstory and what they're psychologically thinking, even though we don't hear that or see that on screen, that all that stuff matters. And so the fact that she as an actress was like, oh, I thought I blew this in the film when I ad-libbed this line, tells me that she as an actress thought that the character knew.
Yeah.
At least that's how I kind of read that factoid.
I think that's probably how she could justify in herself as to why she would end her life.
Yeah, I mean, there's something like, I think the reason why I don't think it feels crazy, it feels, not vindictive isn't quite the right word, but it's sort of proving a point to him in that moment. I mean, it's a sad, inappropriate point, but yeah.
Yeah.
I kept thinking about the kid, like,
right.
Why would she leave the kid? But,
she was drinking early in the morning, so she was already failing as a mother. So it's like, well, let's do the ultimate fail and just get out of here.
Let's move on to the next.
Sorry. Okay.
Let's go to the next note.
After they watched the new trick, someone, the owner of the theater, after watching, he's like, it's rare to see real magic. And you mentioned that it's real magic is science.
Yeah.
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 And I just wondered, like, when has he seen real magic previously? And I guess electricity is real magic.
Yeah, I mean, I can't obviously speak to exactly what this is, but I think people back then, I mean, when people saw the first, motion picture and like a train was coming at the screen, they thought it was a real train, people believed lots of weird, crazy things in the past. So yeah, that's my explanation for it. I don't know. Maybe that's another movie.
When Alfred is in prison and he's saying goodbye to his daughter, it was just so. I love how he said, "Oh, and so and so misses you too." His other half, Fallon. He's like, and Fallon will see you soon. He misses you. I like, my heart just broke for him. And then I wonder, Who was the real father?
The one at the end, right?
I don't know.
I read it. I read it as the one in prison. I read that as a goodbye, but
So I'll tell you why I'm pretty 98% sure
wait.
that the one in prison is Fallon, and Albert, the real father, is on the outside, because the real father loves Sarah, and when he's being pulled away, he apologizes, right?
Yeah.
So, like,
he said
he's
I
like,
should
I
have
didn't mean to.
left him.
Yeah. So I think the fact that he apologizes for Sarah tells us that it was the brother who didn't love her, because he's the one who had the fight with her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And the real father was dressed up as Fallon and carrying the little girl away from the fight, so she didn't hear the rest of the fight. So, so I think the one that died was the brother. Yeah.
And then, who of the two tied the incorrect rope? Or like tied the like dangerous tie at the beginning that killed
I'm sure we could figure it out.
his wife.
I don't know initially, but what I do know that I liked was that I sort of suspect it was the brother that tied it, because like I feel like the brother sort of like is the one that maybe does he does the stuff that the bad brother, okay. the one that falls in love with Scarlett Johansson's character. I think he like sort of is the one that does things maybe more wrong,
spontaneous, yeah.
And I think that he never told Alfred or Albert, whatever you want to call him, and that's why every time Hugh Jackman asks him, "Hey, which knot did you tie?" he says, "I don't know." Yes. I think it's because he genuinely doesn't know the answer.
He really didn't. Yes.
So, just my take. I don't know for sure.
I was thinking the same thing. Like that's why he couldn't answer, because he truly didn't know.
Yeah, it doesn't.
This is a good pick, Kyle. This was a good pick.
Really good pick. I think I just have 2 more notes.
Oh, you were talking about him being in prison? Huh. Did you notice his prisoner number?
No.
His prisoner number was D23, which is the Disney fan club. This movie is a Touchstone picture, which is owned by Disney.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So
I did not notice that.
It's a Disney fan club, so Disney Studios was created in 1923, so D23. So it's
oh my God!
I didn't know that's why they called D23.
Right?
Yeah.
You just opened our minds.
Woo!
I gotta say, Lord Codlow's mustache.
Yeah.
On point.
I like. It's just too far over.
Oh yeah, I liked it.
And I'm like, oh, just like you did so well on the right side. Can you fix the left? Because for the love of God, I like have no idea what he said, because I was just staring at the mustache. I was like, can I just get that for you?
Yeah.
And then my last note was, it takes everything to steal a man's work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty. Yeah, that's a harsh lesson, right? Mm-hmm. Any other, Kyle? Do you have any other like thoughts about the storytelling?
I liked when I watched the movie the first time, not knowing what I was watching, and they go to dinner after one of them is buried alive, and he makes it sound like he's like, I almost lost something really dear to me. Okay, can I celebrate? And so you're sitting here thinking, okay, the other one was buried. But then he starts going, I have an idea for a new trick. I'm going to bury myself alive. And you realize after you watch it the second time, oh, he's the one that was buried. He's angry. He's fed up. Like, he was probably the one that was buried. And he's celebrating the fact that he's not dead.
Yeah.
At least that's how I read it.
In that moment, I wasn't thinking about that. I thought the thing that he almost lost that was dear to him was the book, his journal.
Oh, no. I dedefinitely read it as the brother. Or himself.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, we covered a lot of those.
I'm sorry?
I was just trying to think. I think we've covered a lot of those points of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one other little I don't know, interesting filmmaking bit that I really liked. So the movie it's interesting because it's obviously shot really well, but you don't like feel taken out of the story. You know, it's what we sometimes call invisible storytelling, right? Where the invisible camera work. Interestingly, this movie is edited insanely. So I have a note here. There are 146 time jump cuts in the film that where the next shot either flashes back or skips ahead to another time period. So it averages one timeline jump per minute of the movie.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes obviously they happen like in quick succession, so it sort of balances out. But yeah,
how do you think this movie would have played if it had been edited linearly?
It would have been boring.
Yeah.
I think it would have been boring. I know I say that, but like, you know, performances can save a lot. But yeah, I'm trying to like even process.
Like if they left the reveal of the twins and the clone to the end, but they just watch everything happen in that correct timeline.
I mean, someone could edit it to show it that.
Yeah,
That would be interesting.
I think like one of the joys of this film is that it feels like you're watching a magic trick the whole time.
Yep.
And I think you'll lose that. Like it becomes like a character piece in like a descent into obsession rather than sort of like the setup or more importantly, the misdirect of everything. It would probably be a lot easier to see things coming if you had a slow burn build up to it. So that's, I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to maybe see that, but sort of like why mess with it? It's so good.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a feeling on that?
Yeah, I agree. It probably would have been safer because the pitch of how you're going to do the timeline, I can see executives being like, hey, like we need the audience to be able to follow the storyline. We can't be jumping every 5 minutes. But it was the right decision. Someone greenlit it and had faith in it.
I think you know, Christopher Nolan probably wrote his hall pass on that with Memento. Like you can't. It's sort of hard to argue with linear. I guess it's technically linear. It's just linear in reverse, but it's hard to argue with like traditional timeline storytelling with a guy that like sort of set the bar on a low budget film.
You know, the only Christopher Nolan movie I haven't seen is Memento. And I've heard high praises.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like, I don't know that it's like his best film or anything, but it's just really well put together. The way he tells a story is, I mean, you know, you've seen enough Christopher Nolan movies to know that, yeah, he like I said, he sort of like guaranteed that people will at least consider like backing off and kind of letting him do his thing because his brain kind of works on a different level. And his brother as well. I mean, they wrote this movie together. It took him 5 years to write this movie.
Do you think that he can get
Prestige.
to?
Oh my God.
Do you think that he can get to a point where people are tired of his steps that he takes in a movie? You know, like the way that he tells. You know, they're all different, but he has his beats. He has his. Oh, I'm going to play around with time. Do you think that there's going to be a point where you get fatigue and you're like, ugh, almost like M. Night Shyamalan got to? He was just great, and then it was like, all right, I'm over it. He's a better director, but do you think that people can get fatigued of it?
Yeah, I think Tenet is maybe an example of that. I hear a lot of like criticism for Tenet being like too convoluted and confusing. I didn't personally find it that way, but I've definitely heard that a lot. So yeah, I think there is some of that, and I think maybe in some ways, or in a lot of ways, Oppenheimer kind of like pulled back on that a little bit, because it felt like, yes, you were getting time jumps, but both stories were linear, right? So you had one going forward constantly and the other going forward, and they just intercut them. And he told he changed like the aspect ratio, and he changed the color saturation for both of the, so like one's black and white and one's not, and one's 4:3 and one's not, one's IMAX or whatever. And so by doing those things, he sort of alleviates people the expectations that people sort of have for him. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the next one looks like, because from what I understand, it sounds like a pretty linear story. And he's doing a remake, I think.
What?
What's that?
I haven't heard anything on what his next project is.
So it sounds like he's remaking.
Wait, isn't Tom Holland? Isn't Tom Holland in it?
Tom Holland and maybe Matt Damon.
Yes,
but it's I think it's a remake of Blue Thunder, just police helicopters, which is.
Oh, I was like, I thought it would say something, but it's the untitled Christopher Nolan Universal project.
Yeah.
So,
beautiful title.
Type in Christopher Nolan, type in Chris Nolan Blue Thunder, see if that comes up.
Just some hell of a cast.
Robert Pattinson, that's it was. Robert Pattinson and
Zendaya and Hathaway, Tom Holland, Matt Damon, and Lupita Nyong'o.
Everybody wants to work with him. I mean, that was the thing with Matt Damon on Oppenheimer was he was on like leave. He was on vacation, not taking any jobs. And when he agreed with his wife, he's like, okay, she's like, I want you to take a break. And he's like, okay, I'll take a break, except if Chris Nolan calls me. And he called him for Oppenheimer, and he's like, Chris Nolan called me. And she's like, all right. So yeah, everybody wants to work with them. Interestingly, Christian Bale hasn't worked with them in a long time, and hopefully that'll happen again soon. I like Christian Bale.
Can I just mention that in development is a remake of Memento? Yeah.
It's weird because I'm okay with a remake if they have something new they can say.
Yeah.
You know, let me see.
I don't know. A remake of the 2000 film Memento about a man suffering from short-term memory loss.
Yeah. So I have here, so it's still just rumors. Latest Christopher Nolan rumor, 1983 helicopter action film Blue Thunder remake. So we'll see. We'll see if that's true. That'd be exciting. A helicopter movie? I don't know.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. When was the last time you saw a helicopter movie?
Never.
Really? Never?
A helicopter? Like a movie about helicopters?
Yeah.
Never.
All right.
Like Speed, but helicopters?
When was the last time you've seen a helicopter movie?
Firebirds maybe, or
Blue Thunder.
in the late 80s. Blue Thunder, early 80s.
Oh, the movie you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, the 80s, people liked helicopters back in the 80s. Remember Airwolf? You ever see Airwolf? Oh, great theme song. Check out the theme song to Airwolf, folks. 80s TV show about a helicopter.
Oh, wow.
Vehicles were big in the 80s.
I guess
Transformers
so.
and
That's why Andrew Lloyd Webber put a helicopter on stage for Miss Saigon.
Yeah, people like vehicles. Well, I don't have. I mean, obviously, I think we all would recommend this film to somebody. Normally, Kyle, this is and then this qualifies, but the movies in the bucket are the movies that we think you should watch before you die. I think this was a good pick. It's probably in the bucket. We probably have to dig it out of the bucket somewhere now.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you you picking this and taking the time to be here with us. It's been a lot of fun to chat with you.
This is fun. I love movies, so I was excited to do this.
Well, yeah, maybe, if you had a good time, maybe you can come back. Yeah, it's up to you. Just see how you feel.
Send the invite. I'll come back.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Well, one last time, where do people find you?
You can find me on TikTok. Yep, Kyle Philippi on TikTok. And the family Philippi on Instagram.
Nice.
All right. Alexis, do you want to plug yourself? Do you have anything going on?
Just doing a lot of sewing lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you posting. You're posting finally. You don't post very often your stuff, but
I don't.
It's coming to award season, so she's like, I better get myself posting again.
I should probably start building a following in my seamstress account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have
What about you?
No, I got nothing going on.
Awesome.
No, just I'm
Watching
bored. I'm boring.
movies.
Well, you guys can come over to Chattanooga and come be in a DoorDash. You can work on the costumes, and you can come perform, and we can do a production for one person. Oh, okay. So both of you can perform.
Great. Yeah, you haven't heard me, Sam. It's not a pretty picture, but I can like do this.
Okay,
This
there's
kind of
plenty
thing in
of
the background.
background characters that need to do that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. Well, yeah, okay. Well, then we'll talk about stuff like that.
Take a trip to Chattanooga.
And we'll see if we can come up with some more movies to maybe do with you on the podcast if
Yeah.
you're interested. So,
Sounds good.
all right. Well, that's it for us. Until next time, everyone. Bon cinema.